Hello, so I'm Jordan Millward. I'm the CrossFit Division candidate for the County Council elections. I'm here today with Joe Mason.
Thanks, Jordan. Yes, I'm Joe Mason. I'm District Councillor for Haverhill for West Suffolk, and I'm also Haverhill Town Councillor. And I also run a community group called Keep Haverhill Tidy.
So today, me and Joe are here to talk about littering and fly tipping, and with Joe's experience with Keep Haverhill Tidy and his experience in local groups in terms of managing litter and environmental pollution in his local area, we're going to just talk through different points about litter and fly tipping in general. So starting off then, Joe, I just wanted to get a bit of a feel for what you think is the main impacts of litter and fly tipping on the urban community or semi-urban community.
Okay, so when we talk about community, we normally think of one group of people, but the truth of it is the community is made up of many different viewpoints. And for me, one of the challenges is to try and get to grips with those viewpoints and to see how over time we can maybe look at changing behaviours. So in some communities, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration and anger, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people will pick up the litter. There's a lot of frustration. In other communities, or even within the same community, there's ambivalence or apathy. And one of the issues for me is when communities learn to live with litter, people who tend to litter pick often use the phrase that litter breeds litter. And one of the challenges for these communities, whether it's apathy or anger, is about trying to redirect the focus onto action. And so then you get the third group of people who begin to understand that impact is having a negative impact on our lives. Whether it's making people angry or makes people ambivalent, and we're learning to live with litter. And that with the ongoing concerns regarding the environment and that sense of powerlessness regarding climate change, there's an increasingly big swell of people who are really interested in wanting to do their bit. And certainly litter picking, certainly in Haverhill, but certainly throughout the country, especially during the lockdown, has become much, very popular.
No, certainly. And I was going to say, and obviously, as well as the environmental impact, you have the direct impact on wildlife, and especially regrettably, we have seen a rise in the face masks, which have been both discarded on the floor or accidentally dropped. And that is a danger both for kids who might potentially pick it up, or for the animals that potentially get them caught around their necks. And obviously, a lot of the issue with litter is, I suppose it's always seen as someone else's responsibility by some people, as you say, the bit of the apathy that it's someone else's problem and it be dealt with elsewhere. But obviously, that does have a cost element. And I just want to move on to, have you seen any particular reduction since Keep Haverhill Tidy has been particularly active in this area and actively contributing to litter reduction? Have you seen a change in your local area in terms of how that's had an effect in the wider community, or what is the reaction from the wider community?
Okay, so it's not a straightforward yes, suddenly we've solved the litter in Haverhill. I think one of the challenges of modern living is we generate waste. Mm-hmm. Even bin delivery, when the bins are emptied, very occasionally waste may escape and enter the environment. Local winds recently whipped up waste from different parts of Haverhill, from contained sites that you thought that waste wasn't going to escape. Bins were blown over, waste escaped. I've noticed a difference, mostly because we've now got so many people engaged in litter picking, which is a really positive thing. That doesn't necessarily mean we've got less litter. Mm-hmm. And part of the challenge is how do we shift from social action, which is the act of litter picking, to a point where we are actually seeing visibly less litter on the streets. Because to some extent, the excellent work that my fellow litter pickers do is masking the issue that, of course, as a society, we are generating far too much waste. But what I would like to move on to, Jordan, just very briefly, is the group that I run, Keep Haverhill Tidy. When I set it up, the intent was always far greater than just picking up litter. The aim of litter picking has to be, in the long term, to kind of change behaviour permanently by spotting the problem daily and maybe offering some solutions. Through the social media site, I've been working at trying to improve some of the information that people have access to. And it's really interesting how now people are beginning to share that information. And so the information isn't necessarily coming from me, but it's coming from other group members. And for me, part of a solution is one of education and informing people about how to solve problems. And also the act of modelling. So the more people that litter pick, the more people who are interested in wanting to join in the litter picking. And it kind of catches on. And for me, but the act of litter picking begins to raise the awareness that there's a social issue that needs resolving, that we can all engage with. To begin with, people were saying, why can't the council pick it up? But of course, it wasn't the council that dropped litter in the first place. And it's about taking ownership of your own community and doing acts of citizenship. One of the expressions I use often with litter pickers is that my home isn't the house I live in, it's also the town and the space that I live in. And I'm willing to take responsibility for helping pick up litter in different parts of a town. And for me, there are many litter pickers who are doing exactly that. And it's modeling acts of citizenship that I believe are actually over time going to be contagious. And people are recognizing it. People are telling me about the great work that Keep Haverhill Tidy are doing. And for me, the long-term aim is about raising public awareness, but also about creating systems and support and easy access to information. I'll just briefly talk about the West Suffolk website, because on the West Suffolk website, there's loads of really good information about what to do regarding fly tipping or full bins, or what to do if you find glass or needles. All of these are hazards of things that you might end up picking or finding when you go litter picking. But quite often people don't necessarily find it easy to, or don't necessarily think of, right, okay, I'll go onto the West Suffolk website to find out the information of what to do next. And for me, one of the interesting things about social media is I've been able to take some of the information from West Suffolk, put it into the social media. And so now, instead of people telling me about bins overflowing, they now got the telephone number and they've got the email address and they can report it in. And I must say, West Suffolk have been very good in supporting the work that we're doing in Haverhill. But we're now getting to a point where the community is really getting positively engaged. And for me, the solution is about that engagement, because over the long term, whilst we are a society that generates a lot of waste, the solution, I think, has to be that people beginning to take responsibility far more for the waste that is around them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that brings us on to the point about obviously the other type of litter that is the major problem, which is fly tipping. In a rural patch, in a lot of the rural areas, such as the local parishes around Cosford, a main issue that they have is people who might drop their waste on private land. And I know from litter picking in different areas before, it's not just bottles, it's not just small cans, it can be people dumping a bed frame or a mattress into public green spaces which are a bit well hidden. And if they're on public land, the council will take ownership of it and will clean it up. But that's not the point. And equally on private land, it's at the burden of the private landowner. And that's often different pressure on them. In terms of, I suppose this is more anecdotal, Joe, but could you just give me an idea, what's the weirdest thing that you've particularly found when you've been litter picking, or what a member of your group might have found? What is the most peculiar item that you've seen that has been an area, an item of rubbish, if one sticks out?
Oh dear, there's quite a few that stick out. We've had a rowing machine in a ditch. I don't know if that counts as slightly unusual. We've had a pram deep within a bush, a 12-inch blade stuck into the ground in a children's playground. You just never know. I mean, from car tires to golf clubs. You know, I think for some people, they may be unaware that actually how easy it is to use our recycling centres. For the large fly tipping, for me, it is a trading standards issue. If somebody has a licence to carry waste, we need to make sure that they are disposing of that waste properly. And you know, the rogue salesmen, you know, the rogue traders who are willing to take your waste away, we need to definitely educate the public so that people can actually see their license to carry waste, because by far the most common reason for fly tipping, the large amounts of fly tipping, is the avoidance of paying commercial fees at sites by these rogue traders. And for me, that's a trading standards issue, which linked in with education with the general public is a very, very difficult one to try and solve.
And the other thing, I suppose, going on from that, is one of the issues that most members of the general public aren't aware of is, if your waste is found and that waste is linked to you, if you've gone through a rogue trader, the responsibility is on you. If they've tracked the waste back to you, then you are the one lumped with the fine. And most people don't recognise that. And obviously, making sure that you have that proof of receipt and proof of their waste management certificate, then you can make sure that your waste is, you've done at least all the boxes that you can tick to make sure that your waste has been disposed of correctly. And that's something that you need to ensure. Hey, Joe, so what I want to get an impression from yourself is about the fantastic work that our recycling centres do. Can you give me a bit more information about how they serve our residents?
Well, Jordan, the recycling centres have vastly improved in our localities and made it so much easier for people to be able to sort their waste and dispose of their waste. The Haverhill has got a new recycling depot being planned to be built in the next year or two, and increasingly the amount of education and the guidance that is provided certainly means that we're maximising our opportunities to recycle more of our waste. It's also really quite interesting how Suffolk County Council are also promoting refill. So the refill sites and shops, there's an increasing list of participating stores that are encouraging people to take along their empty containers and have those refilled. And so for me, the recycling centres, the depots, not only make it easier for us to dispose of our current waste, but the work that the Suffolk County Council are doing in educating and encouraging partners in trying to minimise the amount of waste that is produced, all is a vital part of the mix, because the key phrase is to reuse, reduce, reuse and recycle. And certainly our recycling centres are providing a wonderful service that is helping massively.
I'd certainly echo that, and I would also like to highlight about as you say, about education, the other area of education, especially during the pandemic, where we saw brown bin collections having to be reduced, for making sure that household waste and blue bin waste was maximised. A lot of brown bin waste was encouraged to be composted, and there's been fantastic education campaigns around how to do sustainable composting and how to do composting in the back garden. And there's fantastic webinars that I will share with this link effectively to make sure that people, if they are interested in composting and recycling their garden waste, they know how to do it and what they need to do to be successful at it. Joe, the last question I have for yourself, I just wanted to know, obviously Keep Haverhill Tidy has grown and grown over the years for yourself. I just want to know, from your point of view, why do people get involved in litter picking? What is the buzz about the community of something like Keep Haverhill Tidy, and why do people do it?
Okay, I think each person may, if you were to ask them individually, will give you a different answer. For some people, it's an excellent form of exercise. And, you know, some people I've spoken to, they don't really know where to walk or where to go. And giving them a litter picker gives them something productive to do. And it's actually incredibly good for mental well-being. It's very therapeutic. You find yourself thinking about all manner of things in your life as you go about your litter picking. And, you know, so for some people, it's excellent exercise. It's good for their well-being. They get out, they get some fresh air. And certainly under lockdown across the country, lots of people have been engaging in litter picking. I think for people, they're in frustration, that's a sense of powerlessness. And I think litter picking gives somebody something very productive in terms of how they feel they can contribute to an issue, let's say, such as climate change. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter whether it's one crisp packet or one bottle. The act of picking something out of a hedge or helping clean the environment is a very small act, but a very meaningful act, because, of course, you're not there alone. There are people across the country doing exactly the same thing, and together people are making a huge difference to the amount of waste on the streets and in our localities and our green spaces. I think the other aspect is it's about building communities. And what I found absolutely fascinating is that Keep Haverhill Tidy has created new communities and context between people. And I think there is a real need for social interaction and opportunities for people who are like-minded to get together and to clean up an area. Now, under COVID, of course, people haven't been able to go out in groups, but the communities and the supportive communities has given people something to rally behind. And so for me, one of the reasons it's become popular, it's all of these things. It's about good mental well-being. It's about exercise. It's about communities, acts of citizenship, feeling that you're making a difference. But for each person, I think everybody finds something different as to what they get out of it. For me, I just love seeing an engaged community where people are taking an interest in their community, and what's more, being role models, demonstrating to other people that actually, yes, we can take a few minutes out of our day just to make a little bit, and together we can make a big difference.
And I think it's something I saw from some of your members. A lot of your members for the Keep Haverhill Tidy, they do this on their regular commutes. They tidy up their patch on their regular walks, and they maintain these spaces, and it does give an element of pride in the community, pride in your wider environment, not just your household. So with that being said then, Joe, do you think that Keep Haverhill Tidy, your formula effectively for an engaged community, can be replicated all over the county? Yeah. Would that be something you'd love to see?
I would love to see it. For me, there's a key ingredient for Keep Haverhill Tidy, and that is, whilst we get frustrated at poo bags being thrown into bushes, and we get frustrated at fly tipping, at no point do we engage in outing people or wanting to condemn. There is an acknowledgement that not everybody not everybody is on the path of understanding necessarily the importance of looking after litter. And the ethos behind the group is really quite a kind, gentle and supportive one. But it's remarkable how that is contagious. And we're coming up to nearly 800 members. And there is an awful lot of goodwill and support. And when people go out and do a litter pick, let's say by themselves, it's fascinating to see how many people are grateful and thankful and always post their comments. And for me, the importance of litter picking is about that positive. We don't do it in terms of how awful litter is. Okay, we do it just because it needs doing, and it benefits the community, and it's very self-supporting. Our community of litter pickers are wonderful at supporting each other, and by focusing on the positive and by setting a really good role model, it's ended up creating an atmosphere of real positivity where everyone feels that actually this is a great group that can really help make a difference. And hopefully that same message will spread, and over time, we might begin to see fewer people being careless with their waste. That's the ultimate goal.
Hopefully, like your group's spirit in terms of keeping the litter down, we'd hopefully see that equally starts catching, and people start being more mindful of how much waste they're producing and so on. Hopefully we see that as the same. No, so thank you very much, Joe, and thank you for joining me today. It's been very insightful. Have a great evening.
And you, John.